Okay, so I've been living with the XT8 Tannoys now for a couple of months. They are amazing. And I've been raving about these in different videos and also on Instagram. So a lot of you have asked me about them. So what I thought of doing is just a plain simple sort of review of the speakers, giving you my 2 cents about it. I've never done this on this channel before. I don't think so anyway. I'm gonna do a review of the XT8 Tannoy speakers. But before we do, cue music. So just to give you a little bit of a background, Tannoy is not a new speaker manufacturer. Quite the opposite. They have been around for almost 100 years now. They were first a company that was based in London, but moved their operations to Scotland in the 70s, where they are still operating today. The Revolution series, which we are talking about here, the XT8 that I have, is the flagship of that series. And in this series, standing out is the new technology called omni magnet. And this technology makes the soundstage and the mid-range really stand out. Notable is also how the cabinet is built with the bass port pointing down, and this on an integrated plinth, which makes it a speaker that you can place in any sort of room and environment, and you don't have to rely on the floor to handle the bass. The XT8 is 108 centimeters in height, 31 I think in width, and 34 in depth. They weigh in on about 20 kilos a speaker, and the sensitivity is up to 91 dB. And the recommended watts to drive these are just 25 up to 200 watts with 8 ohms per channel. And in this case, this is not much. It's fairly easily driven speakers. When they came out, they clocked in on about 2,500 euro, something like that, when you bought them new. So before we start, and I'll describe the sound that I'm hearing from them and the different records that I played, I want to give you a sort of a background of what I drove these speakers with, my setup. So first off, the power comes from this tube amp. It's a Ginza CS88A. I play my records on a clear audio concept with a Dynavector 10x5 cartridge. I also have a custom built phono stage, and I play the CDs on a Shuangling T1000, and I have the AudioQuest Rocket 88, their flagship of speaker cables. So now you know what I play these speakers with. Now let's get into the sort of the sound. And this is the fun part. But I have to say that I'm definitely not an expert. Absolutely not an expert. I just want to give you my 2 cents of what I'm hearing. There is a bunch of reviews of these speakers on YouTube. You can just surf out and get your information from them, because they are professionals and they are experts about this. But stick around if you want to listen to me ramble about the different sounds that I'm hearing and comparing it to this little sort of experience that I have with speakers. So the first thing with these speakers, when you drop the needle from second 1, is the soundstage. I mean, I've never heard a soundstage like this before. And I think that when I've read other reviews of these speakers, the sort of the omni magnet technology that I talked about earlier, I think that this is the sort of ingredient that makes the soundstage that big, and also digs forward the mid-range and gives you the details and the perfect sort of separations between not only instruments but sound. Like every single sound, if it's a pick hitting a string, if it's a lip moving when you're singing, or if it's I mean, even higher frequencies when a violin is playing or a cymbal is struck, it's unbelievable. And just to give you some examples of records that I've played, I think that you know most of these records, so you can sort of imagine what I am hearing down here. So the first thing I want to talk about is Michael Jackson's Thriller. I played the CD version, the 25th anniversary edition. I have to say that I've never heard Thriller like this before. I think that the effects in the music that I guess Quincy Jones made where instruments and sounds sort of build the room. It really helps the soundstage. But once again, the soundstage through the speakers are enormous. The room, if you close your eyes, if you sit in the sweet spot and you really close your eyes, the room is a venue, and it's really a stage, because the depth, the 3D effect is so dead on. Every sound, now we talk effects like sound, you can almost touch them, and they move in the stage, which helps it to, in a way, make the walls, but the walls are like 20 meters beyond your own walls. And the mid-range. The voice, when Michael Jackson starts to sing, is dead center, a little bit leaning forward. It's a cliche to say it, but it sounds like he's standing in the room with you. The bass is also very good. It's natural in its sound. It never gets boomy or punchy, but it's not the main character in this. And the little critique that I may have with the, I think in this case the CD, is that it's a little bit harsh when it comes to really high frequencies. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is Santana's Abraxas. I have the first US press of this, and I played the vinyl record. It's in perfect condition and it sounds great. So I often use this as a sort of a reference when I test stuff out, because I know it that well, and the first two songs I think are perfect for trying out and getting that sort of the sound that I'm really looking for. So if you know Abraxas, you know that it starts with this swooping sort of guitar tone, and it walks from speaker to speaker. There's a lot of air around the tone, which is so awesome. It's a little bit higher than I was used to, and not higher in pitch, but higher in placement. And it's crystal clear, so you can really almost touch the tone. It's just awesome. And then they start playing, and the guitars, they really fill up the room. They take the main sort of stage, but without ever being too demanding. They aren't like harsh or up in your face or anything. It's just filling up the room, and I think that the LP also helps the guitars to really get the warmth instead of the harshness. But to me, the sort of the main ingredient that I really thought was cool listening to Abraxas, that I've never noticed before, not like this anyway, was the percussion. Because the percussion, you can hear every sort of snapping hit on the skin. Unbelievable, like really cool. Another one that I've been playing, and now we talk mid-range, really is acoustic guitar and singer-songwriter. So I played Cat Stevens' Teaser and the Firecat. So Cat Stevens is right there in the middle, like spot in center. Fantastic sort of, his voice really pops, and a little bit forward again, a little bit forward. So you get the notion of him being in the room. But then the guitars come in, and this is where it shines. Like, they never take over. His voice is still the main man of the show, but the guitars are recorded so well, and the speakers can really perform. So when you hear like Father and Son, you can hear every single string. When the pick hits the string, you hear the pick hit the string. It's so physical that it's nothing I've ever heard before. Once again, it was like listening to Cat Stevens for the first time. So the only like small critique once again is the absolute highest frequencies, which gets a little bit harsh. And this is the LP version, so I don't think that you can ask for more in this case. I think that this is where the sort of the speakers have come to the end station, and when I played records, it's very obvious also that the pressing is a huge factor in this, because if it's a bad pressing, bad done reissue, you get sibilance and extreme harshness, especially in the high frequencies. But with these sort of audiophile records that I've heard, they are so well made, so you don't get anything of that. It's just perfect all the way through. So how about jazz? Well, I think that this, maybe the singer-songwriter and jazz, is where it really shines. I choose Sidewinder with Lee Morgan. This is the new press that the classic series that Blue Note has made now for 3 years or something like that. This was one of the big titles, and as I said when I got it, it's one of the best sounding records that I have ever heard, and almost everyone in that series are. What I really want from listening to jazz is a good separation of every instrument, and also good details. I want to really hear exactly where in the room each and every single artists are and what they are playing. And the speakers deliver this fantastically. Again, it's like they are standing in the living room, or when you close your eyes, it's like you are sitting in at the session. And just to compare this fantastic pressing and fantastic mastering, I took the John Coltrane and Art Blakey record that Dole had made. They renamed it as and reissued it as a John Coltrane record, but it's a Art Blakey record, and John Coltrane was playing on it. This is wrong on all levels, not only how it sounds but how it looks. And as I said in a recent vinyl finds, with these speakers, it sounds okay. And I mean, sure, it's extremes when it comes to the quality. In this case, where the Lee Morgan record was perfectly separated, huge sound stage, real details. Here you have a smaller sound stage, a more flat sort of imaging, not much details or air around the artists and the instruments, but it's still enjoyable. That's the fun part with this. It's still enjoyable. Okay, I don't know if you got anything of that rambling of mine, but to conclude this, to summarize everything, as you imagine, I love these speakers. They sound fantastic. Not only fantastic, but it has made me listening to music like being reborn musically. So it's a experience, really. And yes, maybe it's not for house, or it maybe not for the most heavy music. Like, this is not producing that bass. So I think if you're a metalhead, these speakers are not for you. But for me, listening to acoustic music, folk, prog, jazz, it's just the perfect sort of experience for me. So yeah, I hope you got something from that. I wanted to really just talk a little bit about the speakers and give you my 5 cents on them. So if you have any comments or questions, just write them down below and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Or else, see you in my next video.